welcome to An Apple a Day with Dr. Amanda YouTube viewing. I am so excited to have Hasanna with us, as well as all of you if you're listening or viewing. So it is such a pleasure to have you on, and hopefully you continue to tune on in. If you're on YouTube, like, share, and subscribe. Our theme is women in leadership. And, Hasanna Birdsong, and she is a mother of 2 grown children. She's the VP of Sales at Adept Group in Allentown, Pennsylvania. She's a student at DeSales University and will graduate in 2021 with a degree in Business Administration and Marketing. She is an avid volunteer for the Junior League of the Lehigh Valley, and she is on the Community Action Committee of the Lehigh Valley with Generation Next. Hasanna, welcome. I'm excited to have you here.
Thank you, Amanda, for inviting me. I'm so excited to be a part of this.
Absolutely. We're going to dive into the women in leadership and knowing Hasanna. She has so much wisdom and is such a joy and pleasure to be around. So I'm sure, just like me, you're going to be excited to hear what she has to say. Tell me about yourself.
I'm the oldest of 4 children. I grew up here in the Lehigh Valley, and I've stayed in the Lehigh Valley my entire life. I think that probably explains my extreme wanderlust. I love to travel, see new places, meet new people. Haven't been doing a lot of that right now, but that's okay. We're all keeping busy doing other things. That's my background.
Okay, awesome. And then what is it like being a woman in leadership?
Well, I think as a leader, I grew up the oldest of 4, so I think I would say I was like a born leader. It was an innate thing in me. It was something that I always had to be. I think in a best case scenario, I would say that I would set a good example for my siblings. If you ask my siblings, they would probably tell you I was bossy as a leader growing up. But as I got older, I had a teacher, one particular teacher noticed me when I was in high school, and she helped me start the first chapter of the Future Business Leaders of America at Easton High School. And that confidence and experience inspired me to seek out additional leadership opportunities. So by the time I was a senior, I was president of several student organizations. And it wasn't just at school, even at work. My first job, I remember being the youngest person on the team, but they made me the crew leader at a fast food restaurant. So it was wild for me when I think back about that now, that I must have really been displaying some leadership skills for them to do that.
Right.
In the summer of 2008, I became an independent consultant with Arbonne. And that, I think, is when I really started to study leadership as a craft and develop my own style of leadership. I was always taught leaders are readers. So it was then where I started reading tons of books by people like John Maxwell and Jim Rohn, John Gordon, Ken Blanchard. So those books not only changed the course of my professional career, but they really changed me as a person. I became ravenous for personal and professional growth and development. I think deciding to launch that business was one of the best decisions I ever made for myself as a person.
I just wanted to point out, that's okay, that I loved that you mentioned, like in high school, you had somebody acknowledge your gifting, your leadership gifting, that led to the beginning of starting in that organization, continuing. I just think that's so empowering that, if we notice things in people, to say something, because that, teacher, educator noticed that and did something about it to spark something in you. So I just thought that was really empowering. I wanted to note that.
It's something that I truly am very passionate about. It's why I got involved in the Generation Next mentorship program, because I believe that kids need somebody to believe in them, and it can make all the difference in their life and truly change the course of their life. So I'm very, very passionate about that.
That's great. Yeah.
You actually asked me about being a woman in leadership. So if I think about being a woman in leadership, that is such a loaded question for me, because I'm getting up there. I'm middle-aged, as somebody just reminded me. So I've had a lot of work experiences, and professionally, being a woman in leadership can be very different, all depending on where you're at, who you're working for, what those people are like. So when I look back at the time I spent at the Express Times and Lehigh Valley Live, it was a very diverse leadership team, which is uncommon. Newspapers are generally run by old white men. That's, what the industry is like. But the advertising sales team was mostly women. As a member of the executive committee, we had a solid mix of men and women. And that I give credit to the publisher and CEO at the time, who ironically I'm working for again. He really made it a point to balance out the team with diversity. And I think that's a big reason why we were so successful. Now, it wasn't perfect because there was a time when I was there when there were 3 women who were, myself included, all vying for the same VP position. And that lasted probably longer than it should have. And because we were competing against each other, I think it didn't necessarily bring out the best in all of us professionally. And it was odd because at the same time I was building my Arbonne business, and it was a complete dichotomy. I was surrounded by 99% women, but the way that the business is modeled, it really behooves you to support and help other people. So it wasn't just one VP position we were fighting for. Everyone could get to that title, get the additional income, get the car, and all the benefits that came with it. So when you had a good idea, it wasn't something that you kept to yourself. So a lot of times, and especially in that competitive situation we were dealing with, somebody might have had a good idea and kept it to themselves, or even used it to make somebody else look bad. And when in Arbonne, it was the opposite. It was like all these women, if you had a good idea, you couldn't wait to share it with other people because you really benefited from doing that. So I learned a lot during that time and really implemented that into my leadership style. And I think that is a big reason why I was the one who ended up getting the VP position in my day job. So it was a really good learning experience, I think, and it demonstrated the difference that it can make when women are competing against each other versus not. The 2 most experiences I've had, I've also been surrounded by women leaders. So I've been very lucky that way. So Azure Group is a consulting company in the STEM field. So they focus on life science. I was surrounded by women who were incredibly smart. Each one of them ran their own practice. I ran the sales and marketing organization. So the way that organization works, everybody is a shareholder in the parent organization. So there is a benefit, again, to sharing good ideas and best practices, because when one person wins, we all win. It wasn't as if one practice was necessarily competing against another practice. So that, I think, worked out very well. At that time, I started reading a lot of Brené Brown. I don't know if you're familiar with her, love her. She's all about vulnerability. That was really helpful for me then, because in that particular experience, I was very much outside of my comfort zone. From a technical perspective, this was not something that I was, I'm not an engineer. So I'm working with all these engineers who are really the CEOs of their own practice. And that's a very different leadership style that you have to have when you're dealing with people like that. And so I felt like Brené Brown's books were really helpful during that time. In my current role as the VP of Sales at a Dep Group, it's today all women leaders almost. So we could probably use a little more testosterone on the team. I'm working with Martin Tilligan, and that's been fantastic. He's my entire career been not only a supporter, but a mentor and a sponsor for me. I continue to learn not only a lot from him, but all the women that I'm working with, especially right now, just so inspired and thankful that my kids are grown, because I could not imagine having to deal with all the kids around, like taking care of kids, working full time. One of the women that I work with, she's got 3 school-age children. She's caring for aging parents in the middle of the move, like with all this stuff going on with COVID. The women around me right now are just so strong and inspiring and wicked smart. Love them. And it's really kind of cool to be able to experience what's happening now.
That's incredible. Well, thank you for sharing. Something that stood out to me when you're speaking, and I love those experiences that you shared, that really molded you into the leader you are. But one thing I loved when you were saying, okay, there was some competition, in some of those jobs, but it sounds like we can be competitive, or once like who you are, that value in you, it doesn't matter where you are, right? Then you can empower other people. So it goes from competition to empowerment, but that comes with, right, those learned experiences, be like, wow, like there's a different way, right? There's a way to empower and encourage, and you can bring what you bring, right? And I can bring what I bring, and then we can continue to soar. So I love that part of what you were sharing, and even just learning, how to use that and how that helped you right now, right, in becoming the VP, because you learn those skills of empowerment and how to work with that community. So I really love that. I think that's really a lot of gold and wisdom. So I know you shared, Hasanna, a lot about leadership and successes that you've had. Is there anything else that's standing out to you about some lessons you've learned that the audience may want to take away in terms of, these practices? I know you shared quite a bit.
Sure. I think one important thing to remember is that being a leader doesn't mean that you show up having all the answers. It just means that you show up and do your best, even when you don't. It's important, I think, to know your own limitations and then identify a team that you can surround yourself with that can cover your blind spots, really. I've always found it very important to identify people who are better at things that I'm not good at, so that together we can deliver exceptional work. I think about the job that I had at Azure Group. There I was the director of sales and marketing, and really my strength is sales. But I understand marketing, I get it. That's not the thing I'm really, really good at or really passionate about. The person that I had working with me, Katie, was outstanding. That's her jam. And together we were able to deliver exceptional work.
That's great. And I love when you said about blind spots. Isn't it true? Like, we all have areas of growth, and it's absolutely correct. If you have, different people that complement you, it just goes a longer way. So I loved hearing your example. And even for the audience, if you don't have mentors, I know Hasanna might talk about this, or people in your life that can, speak to you and be a mentor, or even just tell you some things, and you can share with each other about your strengths or areas of growth. I hope you have that. And, yet you feel safe enough to have people like that, because, even from a counseling perspective, which I come from in education, you really do need each other. And we have those blind spots, but they're there so that we can continue to grow, and other people can, again, like, Hasanna, you're saying, some people may have greater strengths in those areas and we learn from them, but we also have things to share too. So I love that.
Yep.
Good. All right. Is there anything else you think, changes that need to happen to pave the way for women leaders?
I think that equal pay is critical. COVID, I think, has potentially really set us back. I'm hearing and I'm seeing that 2-income families are now having to make a choice about who has to go to work and who will stay home and take care of kids with everything that's going on with the schools, which I completely understand. We need for people to be safe, but the disparity in income is really a major factor. It's sometimes the only factor in deciding that. So you've got really brilliant women who are passionate about their careers, who are being forced to stay home, and that's a problem. Equal pay is something we really need to focus on.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And I think that is really important, right? Having that equal pay, and that, not necessarily, I know in your field that happens, and especially in education, all fields, right? There's so many disparities and inequalities with women, and whatever it be, even for like staying home with children, all that kind of stuff, all the harder decisions that come into that. So I absolutely think that's important. And audience, perhaps you've been through that, or maybe you're going through that now. Hopefully these are things that, again, continue to empower you to advocate, right? Advocate at your job and advocate for those rights for you as a woman in leadership. So what are some 5 tips, and it could be maybe more or less, that you want to share with women who are leaders?
I would start with apply for the job that you don't think you're ready for. Men do it all the time. We tend to look at the requirements and then start eliminating ourselves because we can't check every box. Don't do that. I said it earlier, being a leader doesn't mean having all the answers. You don't start the job knowing how to do everything on the job. Absolutely apply for those jobs that you're afraid of. Don't be afraid of failure. I suggest failing fast, failing often, and failing forward. Playing it safe is just, you're not playing really if you're playing it safe. So learn from failure and be resilient enough to move forward from it. You started to talk about this. I've mentioned it before. Find a sponsor, not just a mentor, but find a sponsor. Having a mentor is great. I highly recommend it, but a sponsor is something different. That's it. They advocate for your professional growth in a totally different way. And it's important to find a sponsor at your job, wherever, whatever you're doing. Also, fill your cup. Women tend to not be very good at this. We do a lot for others and forget to take care of ourselves. It's like putting that life jacket on first when you're on the plane, right? So you're no good to anybody else if your cup is empty. So take time for yourself, whether it's for exercise or reading or meditation or just fun. Take time for yourself and stop comparing yourself to others. I have to check myself on this one all the time. Brene Brown says comparison kills creativity. It's so, so true. So play to your strengths and stop focusing on your weaknesses.
Those are great tips. I love that. And I love that first one where you're like, just go for it, right? And it really goes in everything else. Yeah. Just go for it. You're not going to know all the answers and really not comparing, right? Because you bring your own uniqueness, right? There's no one like you in the world. So that's what I love, every one of you. And those of you in the audience that are waiting and have that list, maybe do something a little bit like that, daring to be brave and rip it up and just do it. So hopefully that empowers you, because Hasanna, that was a great tip. You've mentioned many different authors. And again, any of the resources, Hasanna, that you do mention, I will post, on for audiences for podcasts during the description, and for YouTube. I will have that there because I'm such a believer in, like you said, leaders are readers. I agree. And having the resources that are helping to empower you find your voice, or speak your voice and be able to get out there and be who you are, where you're supposed to be. So what are some books and resources that you love to recommend?
So I mentioned a bunch of books that I had read when I first started reading leadership books. Mm-hmm. And ironically, they were all male books. And so when you asked me to think about this, I wanted to really think about a lot of the books that I've read recently. And as I developed professionally and personally, I really started adding a lot more books by females. And some of my favorites are The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks. If you're a woman with self-imposed limitations that hold you back, this book is a must. Mm-hmm. The Big Leap is a book about dreams and fears and how beating those fears and self-imposed limits can make all of your dreams come true, whether they're professional or personal. Mm-hmm. Another book I love by Jen Sincero is You Are a Badass. And she's got a few of those books, all very good. Mm-hmm. If you're the kind of person who lets other people's opinions influence what you believe that you're capable of, this book is definitely for you. It helps you to become self-aware and to kind of figure out what you want in life and just go for it and kick other people's opinions to the curb. What other people think about you is none of your business. Just focus on what will make you happy. I mentioned Brene Brown a couple of times. I absolutely love her. Dare to Lead is one of my favorites by her. This one, I think there are so many myths in modern day workplace culture that make you think that vulnerability is not a good thing, and that's just not true. Vulnerability, values, trust, and resilience, those are the things required for leadership. So that's a great book. I actually recommend that be a book that you share with people that you work with, because it can change the work culture. And then the last one, and I got to see this person speak live, Mel Robbins. She wrote a book called The 5-Second Rule. And this one is when you've got the instinct to act on something that's a goal, just physically move to do it within 5 seconds or your brain will kill it. It's about trusting yourself and taking action and just going for it.
Okay. Listen, that's an incredible list. Again, readers, really incredible women. I love the thought you put into that, Hasanna. And I love that a lot of those, women talked about, just going for it, like you said, daring to be brave, going into atmospheres and being able to shift the culture, right? Because that's important, right? Where we work and our environment so matters, and what we bring into it really does matter as well. So I love that. And so again, hopefully if some of you out there, and I also want to put a caveat in, sometimes, Hasanna, you mentioned trusting yourself, and, I know I'll go into this because my big thing is, healing and like the trauma stuff, but sometimes a lot of you may have, not had a lot of safety or trust, right? And you've not had a lot of opportunities, and some of that stuff is painful, or you've experienced it again and again. I just want to encourage you, I can share, I don't know about you, Hasanna, but I know I felt that way over time. But as I just take a step, like every day, and as I've continued, you'll just be surprised at what you can do and what, again, like sometimes we hold ourselves back from what other people say, but I want you to know, kind of like she did, what other people think about you isn't your business at all, because you matter. Like, we need you to step into who you're called to be as a woman in leadership today. And even men, if you're listening, because I hope you are, we really value you as well. And we want to work beside you, right? We want a culture where men and women value each other, where every voice is heard, and really allowing and really welcoming an environment that allows, for everybody to step up as a leader. And it's not competition. It doesn't have to be how it used to be. It could be a new, innovative way. So if you're out there, I just want to encourage you, because I know how that is. Finally, Hasanna, hearing all of these amazing tips, what is one final, and I want to say takeaway, but really a wisdom tip? We've had spoonfuls of wisdom from Hasanna today, amazing, spoonfuls. So I hope you're getting filled up, but there's room for more. So what's one more tip for us today?
I would say, Amanda, we've talked a lot about personal growth and development, and those things are important. But I think it's also important for us to know that right now, you are enough. Today, just as you are enough.
That's powerful. Yeah. So you are enough. I love it. You can't say that enough, right? And even for ourselves to get up, and I don't know, Hasanna, about you, but, every day I have like a little morning routine. And sometimes it is just that reminder, and I love that you are enough, or you're valuable, or you're loved. And sometimes we have it up here, but not in our heart. Like, it's hard to go through that. And so I love that. So yeah, you might not be exactly where you want to be, but you are where you're supposed to be. And that's incredible. So Hasanna, I want to thank you for everything that you had today. And again, audience, if, like, share, and subscribe. If you know, she may be back for more in the area of leadership, just because I think she has so much to offer. So Hasanna, thank you. And audience, I hope you have a great day. Remember that this week we'll continue with women in leadership. So I hope you continue to stay tuned, bring in your questions, have some feedback. I'd love to make sure that we answer that. So have a great week and take care.
Bye.
Bye.